It is the much anticipated visitor, the highly anticipated guest looming at the door. It's the thought in the back of the mind of probably every early years leader and team, the anticipated nursery school inspections. In studio with me today on Let's Talk Early Years, the podcast, is none other than Lara Hudson to empower and support our nursery teams. Welcome, Lara.
Thank you so much for having me.
A moment in time. You are, to me, I'll let you share with my audience who you are, but to me, you're a champion. You're an early years champion. And I'm so graced, I'm so privileged for you to be sitting here today. Thank you.
Thank you for having me. As I say, it's not often you get invited in to do these kind of things, so it was exciting to be invited and told to come along.
Thank you. Who is Lara Hudson?
Oh, I think through and through I'm an early years person, and although it's not always kind of been part of my DNA, it very much is who I've become. I don't think anybody on an early years journey is always necessarily setting out to be early years.
Really?
I think you tend to find it. I think it comes out in you. Over the years, kind of training people, there's been times where people have come in and they've come from hugely various backgrounds, accounting and when you used to start the training courses and you used to get everybody's backgrounds and everybody would introduce themselves, there were surprisingly few people who said, I'm here because I've decided, from day one I want to be early years. They usually come from other careers and transfer often really, really vital skills over, which is always good to have. So, originally I'm a lawyer, so I did criminal law as my thing, and then my husband got moved to the UAE, as everybody does, and then you kind of transform and diversify into something else. So before I did my degree in law, I'd actually been head of education in a zoo. So I'd done a lot in a zoo. I'd actually done a lot of the public displays, snake handling, seal feeding, that kind of thing. And I'd loved the combination of the two things that you should never really work with, children and animals. They say avoid both. I actually really, really enjoyed it. And I loved teaching people about the animals that I loved so much. From my 11-foot python, Stephen, to my rats, Ronnie and Reggie, and things like that. So I liked handing that kind of knowledge over. Loved spending time with the seals and penguins, because originally, as anybody that knows me will tell you, I wanted to be a marine biologist and I wanted to train orca whales. So a bit of a sidestep, but yeah. So that was the original path. And then, as I say, I came here and I taught in a school, KG2 for a bit, and did my qualifications. And then, I moved into training, and then from there I moved back into, it's almost like you get sucked back into early years every time.
Yeah.
So
it's a different kind of animal that bites you.
Very much so.
Yeah.
And I think once you've done early years, I think it's really hard to go anywhere else.
Yeah.
Because it's so dynamic and it's so exciting, and we're always looking to kind of improve ourselves, improve what we're offering those children. And I don't see that kind of fast pace in perhaps primary or secondary as much as I do in early years. We're a special breed, early years educators.
I absolutely agree. Shout out to all the early years educators, the parents out there, the nannies in the settings. This is a great shout out to you from none other than the phenomenal Lara Hudson.
Certainly is. They hold us up every day, those kind of team members.
Lara, you've had such an illustrious career, such an interesting career. And I want to go back to saying that to me, you're a champion, because I remember engaging with you when I returned to Dubai many years ago with the reopening of nurseries after COVID. I mean, we were the first of the industries to completely close. The notice went out on Sunday, and Monday morning we had closed our doors. And you came back on this team of angels sitting there on Zoom with us and answering our questions. And none of us had been through a pandemic before. And you just seamlessly, effortlessly guided us, walked us through patiently with a myriad of questions. And you had seemingly to me, you had all the answers.
I think I was in a very privileged position. I think along the journey that we all have, again, with context and time, you start to see what each of the roles that you've taken has given to you,
Yes.
and the different skill sets and tools that you've picked up along the way. And I often reflect back into the first time I was in a nursery and kind of looking around and like, oh my goodness, now I'm in charge here, and where do you begin? And I think I'd spent quite a lot of time as a nursery director by that time, and then we had incredible support from the teams in the different authorities in terms of working out how we were going to proceed and things like that. So I think I was very, very lucky. I feel lucky that I was chosen to actually be able to go in and do that and provide the support. And it still is, in our lifetimes. I think it's probably one of the hardest things professionally and personally that we've ever had to manage.
Yeah, I agree.
And I think, just looking at the settings that we go to and the conversations I have with educators now, we're still feeling, and we will continue to feel, the pinch of it for a little while to come, I think, in terms of the children that we see and where they are in the scheme of things. So, yeah, I was just in the right place at the right time, I think.
We're grateful.
It was good.
We really are. We really are. I know I speak for the numerous of early years leaders out there. You have been such a wonderful support to us during that time. So reflecting on that time, Lara, we had this beautiful detailed document that you walked us through. And now in anticipation of nursery school inspections, I think we're all just waiting for this knock on the door, for somebody to come knocking and say, okay, we've come to inspect you. And then, of course, there's been a pause on inspections for schools. And so really we are anticipating somebody just coming to knock on the door. Could we possibly have a sort of pre-inspection framework coming through to the nursery schools? Do you anticipate something like that?
I would personally say to every educator not to focus on that. I think we all need to very much be focused on the internal quality in our settings, and that should be a focus, all year round, inspections or no inspections. Mm-hmm. I think that I truly believe that the early years environments that we work in are very, very special places. And over the years, I've been extremely privileged. And again, I know I was very privileged to be able to go into a wide range of settings. I still get invited by people to go and have a look around. And I really do enjoy going into settings and having a look. And every setting is in a very different position and a very different journey. And I think as educators, rather than worrying about what may be, what could come, we actually really need to focus on what currently is, mm-hmm. and actually making sure that what's going on in our settings is right for the children that we look after. It's good practice for the teams that we work with, and underpinning all of those kind of things into our settings. And then whatever comes in the future, we're ready. Mm-hmm. There's no good fearing what may never be, or
what's
predicting what could be coming. That's not the right way to do it. I think we really need to look at our own settings, look at what we know is quality. If we're struggling a bit on what quality might be, perhaps go back and do some CPD, or look at articles. Or actually, the community is really, really good now and really friendly at actually welcoming people into the settings. Yes. So reach out to other settings and go and have a look around. Ask questions of people that are doing the same job as you, because they're a wealth of information, and often it's very lonely being at the top. And we say it time and time again, as an early years leader, it can be quite a lonely role.
Yeah.
So, go and make friends with people that do something of a similar ilk to you, so that you can actually take all of their best practices. And sometimes you'll look around nurseries and you'll say, right, I like this and I really like that. And then you go, oh, I really, that's not for me. And that's absolutely fine, because the families and the children that you look after are different to the families and children that others look after. So, mm-hmm. It's about prioritising. But like you said earlier, you don't know what you don't know until you've actually been around and seen other things. And you can be very tunnel visioned on what you're doing and what you're seeing. So, if you can go out and about, have a look, go and see, and then bring things that you like back in.
So
but don't stop learning.
The first clue into becoming a setting of excellence is to step out of your comfort zone. Go make friends out there. Early years leader, early years educator. Go and make friends. Go and find like-minded women in the industry and men in the industry who are doing perhaps the same thing you're doing, as Lara is saying, and connect with them.
Very much. And also, I would say go and look at schools because, again, you need to know where your children are going to. It's really good to know where children come from and where they're going to.
Right.
So to know the kind of schools that we're feeding into and the way that those schools are operating and the schemes that they're using and learning a bit more about those kind of schools. And again,
so the
I think
second
schools are
nugget
open
is our partnerships,
very
our
much
outside
so.
partnerships.
Yeah, very much so.
All
Strengthening what you have and what you know, and making sure that you know, if you have a problem, you have a network that you can pick up a phone to, and
Agreed.
I think that's hugely important now.
Absolutely. How would we go about making that relationship? Give us a clue. Help us here. How would I go about? Do I just call up the registrar at the school and say, "Hi, I'm Melanie from X Nursery School, and I'd like to come and chat with you"? Who would I speak to?
I would say go through your admissions teams in schools, and I think schools will be really quite open to those kind of partnerships, because also they'd perhaps like to come and look at your nurseries and see where the children are coming from, and it gives them a much better understanding of how they need to support the children as they come in and develop the planning and things for the next year.
Absolutely.
So I
just
really
listened to a podcast on my way here, and one of the things that stood out for me, and it's something I know, but it really stood out in the conversation, was in the primary school, they're not necessarily trained in early years. And so, like you're saying, to bridge that transition, to understand what our needs are and what we're bringing from the earlier setting into, for want of a better word, the big school, is really dependent on that partnership with the earlier setting.
I think it's invaluable, and I think also we're so much better than we were pre-COVID on early years networking. I think we've improved massively. You know, there is fantastic WhatsApp groups now that are supported by individuals, and people can put questions on them. But they should also be saying, you know, can we meet up? Can I come and see your setting? And doing those kind of things, I think that offers so much more value to individuals than anything else out there.
I do think many offers have been made in the community of early years leaders, you know, and some of those leaders are actually owners, as you might know. And they have extended the hand, you know, and said, come into my setting. But really, on the other side of the spectrum, a lot of the nurseries belong to big chains. And it's the thing about, will they come and steal our IP? Are they going to be photographing our excellence and then going away and duplicating? I have a completely idealistic view on that. You know, I just believe they can never duplicate your magic. But what are your thoughts on that?
I think it's the biggest compliment, isn't it? If somebody can take something away and they enjoy it, or they love what you've done enough to want to duplicate it.
They're inspired.
And ultimately, as you've said, the way that you've come to that concept or that idea or that piece of inspiration is very much your own journey. And that can't be taken from you. So, yeah, I do genuinely feel that people do need to go out and start to not worry so much about things being stolen, and, you know, just go and network and find out who you are. It's also about your own pedagogy, because sometimes when you go out and about, you learn a lot more about yourself than you do about anybody else as you're on those kind of visits.
Absolutely. I mean, we create, and currently you were speaking about, let's focus on what is. What is currently is that we've all chosen our own approaches. Yes, many of us are EYFS, but we've chosen our own approach to the EYFS, or you might have a finished curriculum, or Montessori, or Reggio, or whatever the case might be. What would a quality standard for assessment look like in a setting, Lara?
With so many curriculums, I mean, that's going to be a very interesting question. I'm sure it's one that's being posed around the world at the moment. I think it's about defining what you want yourself and your own internal rubrics on things. And again, I would say don't worry so much about what we know nothing about at the moment. Let's worry very much about where we are. And as you say, within, for example, the EYFS, there's so many different approaches, and we're very lucky here with the diversity that we have within our teams. They come from hugely different backgrounds. You know, if you're in the UK, it's very unlikely you'd come across people from backgrounds in high scope, creative, you know, those kind of curriculums, Reggio. So we are really, really lucky here to be able to go and learn from other people who have incredible backgrounds. When I was working a few years ago, I worked with an incredible Montessori practitioner. And at the time, I knew a bit about Montessori, but not like she was able to show me. And then to be able to integrate that into kind of other bits that we were doing with the Nordic curriculum. And it really is nice to go out and have food for thought and be able to go back. And, as we always say, we should be reflective practitioners.
Yes.
And then digest it and then determine where you're going to take it. Going in and copying somebody's IP, as you said, it doesn't really tell you anything about you or who you are.
Well, it's not beneficial to anyone on the team. So I'm going to take this as our next nugget from you, is that really the high quality setting is dependent on the collaboration of the team. For us to sit around the table and say, what is our curriculum? Our curriculum is what is our values, right? What are our values? What is our vision for this nursery? Whether it be a standalone nursery, whether it be a group of nurseries, we all know that even in the groups of nurseries, each of them function individually. So what are our values? And based on that, how are we then going to implement our teaching and learning to a high standard?
I think the vision is a really good starting point, and I would strongly suggest to people, it used to be something that you would write on a piece of marketing material and it would stay there.
Yes.
And it would be parked, and once you'd come up with it, it was kind of fait accompli. And I used to say to the managers that I was kind of training or working with, I'd always say to them, but what does that look in practice? So again, a really good opportunity for leadership to go back and look at their vision, break it down, and then have a walk around their setting and saying, am I actually seeing what I thought I would from my vision? And I think that's always a really good starting point when you're doing anything around quality, is actually establishing who you are, where you want to be, what your children need, what your team needs, and then putting all of those things into a mixing bowl and then seeing where you end up.
I'm hearing you say collaboration. I'm hearing you say communication. And I'm hearing you say that it's not a once-off, like it's done, as you mentioned. No. I believe that it's a continuous work in progress, but it's really dependent on, yes, a strong leader, but more so a phenomenal team that can work around this vision. And even in creating that vision, that we all sit together and say, what do we, want to achieve? Because I believe that as a leader, if you're going to articulate the top-down vision, and that's important, that has its place in leadership, I believe. But overall, if you articulate that from the top, it would be more beneficial to you to bring it in collaboratively, together, because people have got to buy in. People take ownership of that vision. Yeah.
And I think that's why vision shouldn't just be, as I say, parked. It should be something that's constantly revisited. Yes. The vision that you wrote 10 years ago perhaps isn't relevant to the current marketplace, the current families that we have, the current team that we have. So again, it may be a case of revisiting it, tweaking it, making it work for where you are now. And it's always good to refresh things.
Moving with the times.
Certainly, and a lot changes. A lot changes in early years. A lot changes in education, but I do think early years evolves a lot quicker than most, and we certainly know a lot more now than we did 5 years ago on things like how the brain works and how children adapt to things. COVID taught us an awful lot about how children adapt to things. So I think revisiting things and checking in is always a good thing.
I agree wholeheartedly. I agree with you. Lara, so what do you think as leaders now, you would need to give us perhaps a list, if you can, if you will.
Okay.
a list of what can we use as a maybe 5-step preempting an inspection, a quality assurance inspection, or a consultant coming to visit our nursery, and what would be like 5 steps that we could preempt that visit with?
I think ultimately what we're really saying is, how do I check I've got quality in my setting?
Yes.
And I think to monitor the quality that you have in your setting, you need to look at your starting point. So you need to kind of do almost a SWOT analysis of, your team, key areas like your curriculum, your environments, where am I and where do I want to go? And then I would say from there, my next step would be to reach out and speak to other setting leaders and go and look at other settings so that you can actually see what currently is going on in our sector. I think often we're very blind, as we've said before, to other things that are going on. And if you're going to bring change, you need a network of people that you can reach out to. You can't do it as one person, and although your team is a really, really good support for it, you do need outside eyes as well. So as much as you go to other people's settings, I would also say invite them back to yours, and do a critical friend. Say to them, it's lovely to hear praise, and we all like to hear praise, but I'd also really like constructive feedback. So not I don't like this. It should be, it's not really for me, but have you thought about doing it this way? Or have you considered how that doesn't work for your children? One of the biggest ones that I used to always do when I was out and about doing kind of pre-inspection and things is I used to go into settings and I'd go year after year and the classrooms would be the same. And I would go in and I'd say, don't your children change? And it would be why? And it's because nothing's changed in this classroom. So how do I know your children have changed? Where is the reflection in the room? So again, having that set of fresh eyes almost come in and look at your setting and providing you with critical feedback. And I would almost say, ask somebody that you feel comfortable with and trust, because sometimes those conversations can be a little hard to hear.
Absolutely.
And if it's somebody that comes in and you don't feel so confident around, then you're not going to open up and you're not going to show them, exactly who you are and what your setting is.
I think that could be so meaningful, Lara. I think that could be an invaluable tool for us. And I truly, truly believe that as leaders, we really need to put our egos aside, because like you're saying, this could really sting, for somebody to come in and say to you as the leader of the organization that, hey, Melanie, you're not quite cutting it in this area, or overall for that matter. Do you know what I'm saying?
Well, I think it's so personal as early years leaders, and we're all women. We have to take that into account. What we do in our setting is almost like another part of us. Absolutely. It's such a personal thing. Yes. And so, again, the person that comes in has to be very aware of that.
Yes.
But, find somebody you're comfortable with.
A trusted friend with a critical eye who's
and somebody
going to
that knows
be
what they're talking about.
Absolutely.
Don't bring in somebody that, perhaps isn't in... It sounds silly, but not your style. Because in early years, we all have our own takes on things, our own style. And I suppose that comes ultimately down to our pedagogy, but the look and feel of our nurseries and, the way that we present ourselves. Yeah. So... you don't want to pick somebody who's totally different to your style, because then it's not going to work either. So you have to find somebody with a like mind, I would say.
I agree. This is really valuable. This could be an exceptional tool, I believe, for us as leaders to preempt any kind of inspection, any kind of quality assurance coming our way, and I agree with you also that perhaps we should look at it from a different angle, that we don't anticipate an inspection so much as we actually live out excellence in our settings. I think
inspections are not... They're not going to support us in improving things, and ultimately we're there for children and families, and our every day should be about improving things. How can we make it better? How can we do things in a different way that will support the families? Are the children getting the very best? I say to my teams, no matter where I am, I always walk into classrooms and go, okay, what's in this for the children? So it could be the display, it could be the activity, it could be the way that they're presenting things, but actually have you stripped it back and said, okay, what's in this for the children? Because if there's nothing, then why are we doing it? Yeah. So
what's this beautiful Pinterest-like tough tray all about today?
And you've put this display up, but why?
Yes.
What are you hoping to message families or children? Where are we going with it? Yeah. Often you see things and you can't understand it, and if a practitioner can't tell you why they're doing it and what was in it for the children, then again we have to kind of go back to basics again and start from the very beginning. So again, have those leading questions in your head as you go out. Think about what matters to you, what you think should be in your setting, and then when you're going out and about, make sure that those are the things you say all the time to people, so that they kind of get into that mantra in their head. Yes. What's in it for the child? What's in it for the child? Yes. Okay, so I shouldn't be doing this. I'm wasting a little bit of time here and energy. I could redirect it into something a bit more important.
Absolutely. Lara, you've seen the early years industry in the UAE over the last 20 years. You've seen it progress. I believe you've seen it grow into a beautiful specimen of really excellence in early years education. You and I spoke earlier about how profound our position here is in that we've got input from so many cultures and so many dynamics. What stands out for you, particularly in the growth and development of educators currently?
I think we've kind of already touched on the fact that we're very privileged to be able to learn from such a diverse group of educators
Yes.
and a diverse perspectives. And I also think we've always been incredibly lucky in this country, because in most countries the education system was already there and you kind of just fall into it.
Yes.
But here we've actually been able to be kind of a part of an evolving system.
Yes.
And I think from my side, I've always felt very, very lucky that we were part of shaping something, and we still very much are. And it's, you know, it's an exciting time. I've always said it's an exciting time to be in education, but I do truly feel that we are in an exciting time. And it, you know, the only blip of that, I suppose, was COVID, but actually we learnt so much.
Yeah.
And it was probably the hardest we'd ever had to work.
Yes.
Because it was harder for the teachers being online, and it was harder for the leadership managing a team that was all around the city. And you know, and we had our own demons as well at that time. So it was very, very challenging, but there was so much that we could take away from it in the way that we do things. And, you know, even looking at people's online tech capabilities now, we didn't have a choice.
Yeah.
And it, you know, I don't think we would have been as far ahead as we are as educators with technology as we are now, purely and simply because we didn't have a choice.
Absolutely, I agree.
So we were totally pushed out. And sometimes pushing people out of their comfort zone is a really, really good way
thing.
to see how they can perform.
Yeah.
Would I want another pandemic? Absolutely not.
No,
But actually, now we've kind of gone through it, look at the learning that we've had, and we see if you can implement some of the things that we took away from that in the terms of the robustness of how we communicate with our teams, and, you know, making sure that we're constantly supporting them. I think we became very, very good at supporting and communicating with teams because we were all over the place, and you had to be. It was kind of a sink or swim on that one.
Absolutely. I think the beauty of it is that we take the challenges, and I think as early as leaders we need to be commended for that, is that we take the challenges and we learn and grow from it. And I think we've done that, yeah. Last thoughts? I think I continue to say it, we are the most important people in a child's life. And we will always continue to make sure that we set the tone for whatever comes next. And so wherever we are in our journey and quality, and whatever we do, we need to remain focused on why we're doing what we're doing, and seeing how we can channel all of the really good things that we know and all of the really good things that we do into making those memories for those children, making sure that they have the absolute best time, and so that they go on and, you know, their learning continues in a really, really positive manner. I like nothing more when I see children now 18, 19 years old that I was teaching before, and they come up and they say, "Miss Lara, do you remember me?" And you're kind of like, absolutely, I do. And they'll tell you, "No, do you know, Miss Lara, I couldn't do this, but now I can." Aww. And it's just the fact that you do make such a change, and they do remember you. You know, they may not remember other teachers in their lives, but the early years teachers are the ones that really, really matter. So make sure you get it right for those children first time. Thank you. Lara, it has been my privilege. You remain a champion to me.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for inspiring us and for really setting us at ease. You know, coming from you, I believe that you're always available to guide, to help, to coach, to mentor. And so I appreciate that you've come on here. Where can we find you? Where can the early years community find you? Can we inbox you on Instagram?
I think that most people know how to find me, and I certainly would say that from the messages I get. So I don't think that I'm a stranger to anybody. So everybody has my number. They regularly get in touch with me. I'm on most of the groups. They can find me.
You're on LinkedIn too, yeah?
I am on LinkedIn, yes.
All right, okay. Thank you so much.
Oh, an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
It's been a wonderful pleasure. That has been Lara Hudson on Let's Talk Early Years. If you have not yet subscribed, go and find us on Instagram. Go and follow us over there. We are on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and of course on YouTube. See you next time on Let's Talk Early Years.